Good to go.
All set. Meeting will come to order. We are videotaping the meeting to be posted on the Dayton website per the governor's executive order for public meetings. This is a meeting of the Finance Committee for continued budget review. So first item is approval of minutes of our April 30th minutes as submitted by our clerk. So motion to approve minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Kevin, second.
On discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, all those opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to, there is no correspondence, no additional old business. New business, continued discussion of the proposed FY21 budget. So just for a couple of overviews coming out of last week's meetings. For those of you who weren't here when Mallory and Scott discussed the tabs I've made her add, I forced her to add. I asked on the document that the Google Doc that the Budget Master, I asked Mallory to add a tab with things that came out of last week's meeting in reference to additional personnel, additional stipends, just so we have those in front of us in a single document when we begin our review later on. As we talked about with some of the unknowns, you know, everything that's over and above what was level funded to last year has to be up for some additional discussion as we go forward. Hi, Nance. So that's there. That's just there as a discussion point. The capacity page has been updated. So tab under excess capacity. It is now updated. It takes into account state aid based on the governor's budget, the proposed indirect costs and betterments that we have, a final snow and ice deficit number, I believe, Mallory, correct?
41.
Yeah, 40,822.
There it is.
Yep. And then the new growth estimate was and the allowance for abatements are just placeholders right now. They have not been, those are not the recommendation of the assessors. We're waiting for the recommendation of the assessor. So with that said, and that's usually the number we start with, 150 in growth, which we all, you know, I have some discrepancy with the assessor, but we'll wait to hear what her recommendation is. Her normal conservative recommendation. With the proposed departmental budget, we currently sit $317,000 over the levy limit. So we all know that's usually our starting point. That is based on the numbers that usually our starting point is actually somewhat higher than that, but we also usually use the school's preliminary budget. We are using the school's actual budget. So with the current budget that was submitted by all three of our school districts, this is where we sit today, about $300,000 over the levy limit. So, so now we have a working document that's updated to where we usually look at it. Any questions on that?
That includes all special articles?
That does not.
Nope. There's another tab for special articles.
It's tab 737, Scott.
I know. I don't even know how to make this better. It's crazy. So I have just thrown in some of my recommendations over it, but I mean, you just have the articles and the cost of them.
Are they way down at the end, Mallory?
Sorry, it's in the beginning of the tabs. It's called Annual Town Meeting Proposed Special Articles. It's right after the votes from school committee tab.
Before the stipends.
Yes,
Yeah.
before the stipends.
Okay.
There's only one reason appropriate, it appears, right? And a couple undecided.
Trouble hearing you. I didn't hear that.
No, I said it looks like there's only one that's scheduled for raise and appropriate, and a few that haven't been decided yet.
Well, those are, that'll be our recommendation, where they come from.
Right.
But there's a total of,
You want me to total this, the whole request?
yes, would you?
Yep, doing it right now. $857.03.
So if
$857,000.
if those were all raise and appropriates, we'd be about $1.1 million over the levy limit. But we know, some of these things are items that are truly capital requests that we can discuss. And it's going to come down to what we believe is necessary and what we can hold off until we get maybe free cash later on in the year. But we'll talk about those. I believe that's at the end of our next meeting is when those are up for discussion. Scott, that answers your question, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. So now we can move on to the individual budgets. So I will just open up with what we just presented and gave as an overview. Actually, I'll hold off. I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Azar if you'd like to give a quick synopsis of what the school committee's presentation is and just fill us in on a couple of things.
That would be great, Ed. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address your finance committee. First of all, Ed, by way of introduction, it's been a year since we've done this, and we've added some new people to the administrative team. You all are very familiar with Paul Kitchen, our business administrator. You're not so familiar with our new assistant superintendent, who's also on the call this evening. That'd be Joe Paralia. Joe Paralia joins us as a former principal at the Beckwith Middle School. He was appointed in March of 2020, so he's new to the assistant superintendent position, but he brings a wealth of knowledge and fact-based information to the position, and we thank him for that. And also, many of you probably know Kristen Donahue. She's our special ed director as well. So we have all three on the call along with myself. So Ed, yes, I will try to make this as brief as possible so I don't get blamed for being to filibuster. Basically, our budget process was similar to what we've done since we've been here as the administrative team dating back 5 years now. And meeting in October with the principals meeting with their faculty, asking faculty and working with the faculty to find out what it is that they need to move the learning forward for FY21. And that started in October. And then before you knew it, October became November and December, and then January. And then during that time frame, the administrative team, which I just mentioned, Paul, Joe, Kristen, and myself, meeting with principals to make sure that what they were presenting as the principal's budget was something that was coexistent with our school improvement plans, and then of course ultimately how it would impact our district improvement plan. And then we looked at that alongside of our school committee members, looking at that, and then as you know, Ed, being on the call for our public hearing, the budget was passed at a 0.4 increase over last year. We no doubt understand that COVID-19 will have some impact, but we don't know what that impact will be. So we have gone forward with a budget that we believe right now will present the best opportunities for our DR students. So with that as a backdrop, Ed, Paul Kitchen will walk us through the assessment piece, and any questions before I turn it over to Paul for myself. I'll be more than happy to answer anything that your committee would like to ask at this time.
So Valerie, do you have the assessment sheet that you could share?
Sorry, do you mean on screen sharing?
Yeah.
Sure. Sorry, let me just grab it up. up on my computer.
Oh, I probably have it in an email.
I got it. The assessment, you just let me know if this is the right one. I'm gonna screen share it right now. Everyone see that?
That would be the one.
That's the one.
Put that open.
Nice job, Mallory.
You know, I'm pretty much a Zoom professional. Zoom expert.
Is the back page on it? No.
Hold on, I have that too.
I mean, I think that's the relevant.
But yeah, if you go,
Did this
I think the first page is the most relevant.
Okay.
That one. So Mallory, can you scroll that up a little bit?
Sure. If I do this, can you see the second page?
I'm
Did that-
fine, Mallory. We'll just stay on the first page because it's a summary. So, I mean, Ed, I think everyone actually is probably more familiar with the assessment sheet than I am. But what I've used is, you know, the operational budgets for each of the buildings. So as Dr. Azar said, we met with the administration. They gave us their proposals. We did a series of reviews and then some, you know, I think we did a good job at reducing areas, even in the operational side, reflecting back on them. You know, some things that historically maybe have been funded but haven't been utilized to the fullest potential. We made reductions in the operational side, and there are some retirements that are being backfilled. And the most significant, I think, on the saving side is that the program had or the district had a lease program for the textbooks, and over the period of the last 2 to 3 years, that savings will not be, I mean, that expense won't be incurred. So on textbooks, they're reducing the budget by $190,000. And on technology, we wanted to do a rollout this year. There has always been a line item in for hardware in the budget that has been removed, and we're hoping to make that purchase with a pre-purchase this year with some of the savings perhaps from transportation. And that's about 100, I think it was about 188, but the actual expenditure now I think is about 176. And then we went further when we were looking at making reductions in staff. We were looking at where we could find some money on staffing, and we have eliminated the team leaders that are in the elementary, middle school, K-8, and then the department heads at the high school. So on a regular appropriation, I think that's about 96. All total, it'll be about $126,000 out of staff. Obviously, the largest cost going in is the contracted salaries. Regular transportation is going to be going up a little bit, and the special ed transportation actually reflects what we're currently running this year as the kids move up. When you see the number in the special ed transportation, I think you're going to be, you know, you may look at it and say, why is it so large? This year, it is actually underfunded by a substantial amount, not a substantial amount, but, you know, 60,000, that I consider to be a large amount of money not being funded in the regular appropriation for special ed transportation. So when we looked at the routes, the riders, moved them up, that is a good estimate on where we are for regular ed and special ed transportation. Another increase that we have for next year is the school choice payment. The estimated increase in school choice and charter school for regular ed is about $122,000. I can send the backup on that, but I didn't include it. But it's in the budget as a Yeah, because we don't receive a lot of school choice coming in, so your expenditure is actually, I want to say our expenditure is about 200. We receive about 90 or so in district. So the offset is the differential. So that's our operational. That's the highs and lows of it. I did have it on the presentation on the slides last week, but it's a good summary. I think I share that with Mallory if that's necessary on the PowerPoint. From there, a majority of the slides actually talked about the that we're anticipating. So the governor's recommendation is the 13,042,556. The reimbursement is the $1 million. It's slightly lower than this year's, and that's due to ridership. The Medicaid reimbursement last year or in 20 was estimated at 200. Historically, they've only received about 100,000, or sometimes I think in 19 they received about 88. So it reflects a better estimate on the revenue. And then the energy credit is the SREX. In the operational budget, you'll see in the detail portion of it, each of the schools has a credit, and it's based on the train representation of what their earned energy credits would be. It was $50,000, or it's roughly around 250,000. If we get an additional 25,000 for the biomass boiler and some other incentives on metering, I think we'll be comfortable with the 100,000 additional. Last year, and I don't understand it fully, there was a $400,000 estimate on that number, and there was also a credit on the operational side. So it may be, I think we're going to be short on our revenues this year a little bit on that. And then E&D is equivalent to what it was this year, 500,000. We certified at 900 and I want to say 973 or 937. So it's a comfortable number. I don't think, it's what we need to use. I wouldn't feel comfortable going any much higher than that because 22 is going to be, as everyone knows, is going to be an issue. So then from there, we broke it down by the enrollments and the adjusted growth factor, whatever the formula that the regional agreement has for the above minimum contribution breakout. And then the transportation is a reflection, as I said, of what each district is running currently in the costs, and that's in the breakout on the other page. That will put you at a total of operational assessment of 10,583,949. The debt or the capital on that is another 400,000, so it puts you at about 10,967, and that was early on, I should say in the spring, that would have been I think an agreeable number prior to the revenues that we're seeing now. I didn't include any, and you touched upon it a little bit at the beginning of the meeting. We didn't submit any capital projects. There was conversations early on. I didn't know how to address them because I didn't follow through all that much, but it was really just the PA system or the phone system at the middle school. Stage curtain. The stage curtain was going to be fundraised. Issues that that I saw this year at the elementary school was mostly wastewater. So we've I hate this, we kept getting backups in the wastewater, and SOARS was pumping us out. I think we had to get pumped out about 3 or 4 times, and it has to do with either the pitch on the pipe in the building. We can't do anything about it. I know it was a pitch issue inside the modular, and the contractor adjusted the flow there. And then we just transferred over to a different product, so it's a little more septic friendly. So hopefully that'll be eliminated, but it is a lot of kids anyway using the facility. But we'll just monitor it. I can't say enough about Tom Ferry. When we had an issue there, he was very, very obliging. But I'm gonna reach out and lean on him again and see what we can do about doing our entrance. because now we have time. And maybe if he can schedule a meeting to work out the entranceway and the handicap accessibility, and the district would pay for the product, and if he could use a work crew over there to break up that sidewalk going into the entrance and address that problem that's been like that for a couple of years, I think that would be great. So that's where we're at. That's my Chris review.
All right, so I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
These would be on what Paul, you and I had talked about before. So can you explain to me how we came up with the above local minimum, what formula was used on the dollars above local minimum contribution?
The formula?
Yep.
The way my understanding is that it's the weighted average. I'd have to read the assessment on it, but I did have a breakout on it.
So, well, what method did the school committee vote to use? In the past, they've used based on number of students. They've used percentages of the three budgets. Can someone on the school committee answer that question?
Your formula actually isn't the statutory formula. My understanding is.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, we are following the statutory method.
All right.
Absolutely. So, because I look at it and I went back and just did some quick math based on based on the school committee in the past had used what percentage each budget was, and that's how they split so it was based on enrollment at the high school.
Yep.
Split up on enrollment at the high school, and then of the total, which way, like the 23, if you can scroll that down, Mallory.
Like the equalized value?
Yeah, no. So
No.
if the Dighton Element, no, scroll it to the top, Mallory, please. If the Dighton K through 8s was 23.1 of the total budget, we would be charged 23.1 of the over minimum contribution. Rehoboth would get 27.25 from the elementary school, and then the high school portion of it was split whatever the student population was.
Yep.
So right now the split of over minimum contribution is 50.
It's like 58.19, I think, or something like that.
No, it's Dighton's is almost 46, so it's 54.46 based on the number that you show here on the above minimum contribution. It should be based on the formula that was used in the past. It should be 56.08, 43.92. So I just asked the superintendent and the school committee if they can address what they are using for a formula over the above minimum contribution, because we are using the statutory method.
Well, what I ended up doing was I read what the regional agreement was, and I just followed along that. I can send the breakdown to you, Ed, on how I did it. But
this isn't accept. This is what I was trying to, I understood a little different that our minimum contribution changed. I didn't know that we weren't following the statutory method, because we had this issue years ago where we weren't following the statutory method, and that is what is approved from in our budgets. So if this doesn't follow the statutory method, then there's an issue with what the school committee voted.
Can I ask a question, Ed?
Yeah.
And this is for you or for anyone on the call who is probably more familiar than me. So if it were not the statutory method, my understanding is that would have to be approved by both towns every year. And so obviously we haven't done that. So it has to be that, right? That's what they should be using.
That is correct. So and Paul, I don't want to throw this on you. I'd like to hear from some of our school committee members on what their understanding is on what was voted on, because this is not what that's why, Paul, when I was questioning how that was broken out, why I didn't understand why our number was going up so much and Rehoboth was going up so little. This is definitely a different method that has been used over the last 2 or 3 years. Dr. Azar, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Paul, in working through the numbers, we were working very closely with Kathy Cooper. So Paul, can you share with Ed, where those discussions went and how they were formulated? And also, was there not, there was a reach out by Sue McBride about transportation? Was that also
No,
discussed?
transportation was an issue on the Dayton Elementary because it was actually underfunded in the original proposal by about 50,000, I believe. It was at like 100,000, and it actually should have reflected 150,000.
Yeah.
But
Right.
But
Ed, is Kathy on the call?
Dr. Azar, the over minimum has nothing to do with transportation.
No, what I was saying, Ed, I'm sorry, let me just clarify. There was an issue about the transportation piece that changed the assessment at some point, not to convolute that it has anything to do with what you're discussing right now. Just wanted to make sure that your finance committee was aware of that as well. You just asked me, what can I add? So that's what I was adding.
Well, what was the direction on how over minimum is supposed to be split? Because the school committee has voted many different ways. What was the school committee's direction on how over minimum is split? I don't want to leave this all on Paul. I don't want to leave this all on Paul because
I
this
didn't
belongs to the
know we were
school.
voting any other different percentages than we have voted in the past. My understanding is that we were voting
True.
the same percentages, the same way, same statutory methods that we had voted in the past. I didn't know. Again, my understanding is the same as Brett's, that we would have had to vote a different method to have that change. So I didn't know that we had changed that at all. So it's my understanding that that had not changed, and we voted this year the same way, the same percentages that we had voted in the past. Kathy is not on this call. She had a family obligation that she could not get out of. I know that she did have some discussions when this was all going down. However, I know that this is, she doesn't know probably the end all be all on all this because, she has other stuff going on.
And I actually worked through this with Kathy a little bit, and we ended up using on the page 6 of the regional agreement, the apportionment of operating costs. But I basically, when I married it, I just followed last year's, because last year's equalized value is the same as this year's because it's good for 2 years. So that's the way
I don't question the equalized value. I question how the over minimum was split because we have never split it as far as I know, and that's why I asked.
Okay.
None of the Rachel's been there a little while, but there has always been a determination of it was either split based on student population on over minimum or based on percentages of the budgets. And it would sway, the percentage of budgets would sway because if you had higher priced teachers in one school one year, it would flow from that. That is the only way, the understanding I have had since we went through all of our issues on the school budget. It is the only way that I have been told as the chairman of this committee for 19 years, that's how we've split it. Once we've after, especially since
by enrollment or by cost?
What's that?
By enrollment or by cost?
They've done it both ways. By percentage of budget over and above, and we're only talking the above minimum contribution, which is the only thing that's not clear in the regional agreement on this with the statutory method.
Okay.
Before 2014, before this whole thing, we found out that we weren't doing it right.
Sure.
It was a mess. So since 2014, it was always done either based on student population or on percentages of budget. There was no equalized value thrown into anything that was done on the over minimum contribution.
Then why is the equalized value even brought into it?
Now, equalized value was only brought into it when it was capital projects. It was never brought into the over minimum contribution. Never.
All right.
Never.
So is the preferred method the enrollment, or is it? I mean, I don't know. I'd like to get an answer.
That's what I thought we were voting on is I thought,
You know, there's an ebb and flow to it. You know, everybody has a different opinion on it.
All right.
Hey, Ed,
Yes,
can I make a suggestion?
sure.
You want to figure out how to do this correctly? Go back and look how Mike Malone did it when the mess got straightened out back in 14 and follow that procedure.
Which I think they did based on budget percentages back. I think Mike Malone gave them the choice, gave the school committee the choice on which way they wanted to go, because they both fell within statutory method. It was either based on, like I said, the budgets or the percentage of pupils.
Okay, and you're absolutely right. Equalized valuation does not enter into an operating budget calculation.
It's just the capital.
Just the capital.
All right, then that's where, I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at it because I think we
Yeah.
started doing this in,
So, but I knew we'd finally figure it out.
huh?
I said, I knew we'd finally figure it out. So,
All right. Well, I mean, I can look at it, but I can look at my calculations, but I think I did above on.
I can tell you right now, based on if we were doing it by the split of the three budgets, it's about a.
But if you're doing it,
right, this is pretty interesting. It's about a $60,000 switch. It's like 50.
oh, imagine that.
that's the same number.
That's the same damn number that keeps getting kicked around, 60K.
60,000, yep.
So I was trying to talk earlier and I thought my mic was broken. but
Sorry, Tom.
That's okay. Exactly what Rachel said. I thought we were voting on statutory from the beginning, and that's what we voted on just like last year. And we went with this number. We never, as Brett said, you have to revote to go to change it, and we didn't do that. We went with going with the student, student number. So I asked the question too at the beginning, like, why was Dayton such a higher amount? It just seemed skewed. So I don't know.
Yeah. So Paul, if you can go back and have some further conversations on that. I shared with Mr. Kitchen earlier today that as I look at our budget, and please keep this in mind as because with all those unknowns, you see where we are on our budget process of being over the levy limit, that, we're trying to just at least level fund ourselves. Some of you may have heard the conversation at the beginning. We've actually taken and separated out anything that's new in the budget as a whole separate discussion point. That's the last thing that's going to come along, knowing where we're at and what we need to do. That, we have a little bit of wiggle room and an increase for the school, but that increase is really what we actually committed to last year. If you were to say we were level funding the school, it would be the number we voted last year, which is significantly probably $150,000 to $200,000 more than what we eventually paid. So that's where we'd like to see ourselves come the end of this. It is less than what you guys have requested, but it is I think a 2 or 3% increase from what we actually paid last year. So I think, Mallory, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were at like 10 operating and capital last year. What we approved was, or recommended and voted at town meeting, was somewhere in the range of 10.7.
755.
10.755. So, where, I think we actually, the actual budget was, at the end of the day, was 10.56. I think if you slide down a little bit, Mallory, you can see what last year was and this year was.
Oh, can you see my screen right now, or is it still the assessment?
I can see your screen.
So you see the budget document?
I see the assessment document.
Okay, so the assessment, oops.
Yeah, so if you slide down that page. So our total assessment last year was 10,542,000. We actually approved last year 10,755,000. So as we look at our baseline, that's our baseline as if we were level funding the school. So understand from our side on a school budget assessment that our Bristol Plymouth number is increasing significantly again this year. So we are, hold on, I gotta get in the budget document just so I can.
And I'm gonna go on a little tangent here because
We are also up against a $150,000 increase from Bristol Plymouth. So, you know, we have to look at education in its totality, that the increase we have here at 4%, and then put our increase at BP, which is 22%.
It's the FinCom.
Is 22%, that, you know, our educational increase is significant. So I throw it out to anyone else who might have any questions.
I have a general comment because I'm just getting agitated here. So number one, why are we having this conversation now? I've been sitting here listening to the budget meeting last week, to all the school committee meetings about how collaborative this budget process has been, how much conversations we've had between the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, the Rehoboth FinCom, and the school district and school committee. Where the heck were we in all this? Why are we just hearing this now? Why are we having a conversation on the statutory method versus the method that was assessed now? This should have been done weeks ago. It's a two-party district. Why are we having separate meetings? Why are we driving it that way? This is a load of, I'm so agitated by this because this should have been settled at the same time you were having those conversations with the Rehoboth and driving it to a productive, collaborative solution. Now we have a solution for them. They're all happy-go-lucky and great. We're fitting the bill again. So it's got to be a balance. We have to figure out a way to collaborate with this as a team, as a one district, and not be driving to one against another. And this is 100% on the administration, and the numbers are wrong again. Sorry, done.
Okay. Ed, you were there last week. You asked that question, but I don't recall that we even had an answer when you were asking about it last week. So it's like, I just want Scott to know, like, we were there asking those questions.
I listened to it. I heard but I listened to also the administration sit there and preach how this has been such a better process because they had a seat at the table. They got to sit there and talk with Mr. Degnan from Rehoboth and their FinCom, how they got to talk with the Board of Selectmen from Rehoboth. Brett.
Yeah, I was going to say, Scott, this is Glenn.
How many times have you sat down with the Board of Selectmen in Dayton? How many times you've sat down with Mallory and had this conversation? How many of you times you sat down with the FinCom and had this conversation? We haven't had that chance. So now we're at an opportunity now where you put an assessment from us that is wrong. And it's numbers that you haven't run by us. So how is this collaborative? It wasn't. It was one-sided. And that's...
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
This is Glenn. Hey, I was going to say, yeah, I echo what you say, Scott. I mean, some of us have raised that same concern. I know myself, Liza, and Rachel have said that. And I get frustrated because all we seem to care about is making Rehoboth happy and rolling the red carpet out for them. And you're right. I don't understand why we're even meeting now, discussing anything about assessment when we've already voted a budget, when these meetings should have happened back in March, February. You know, Chris Angrade echoed it. I'm not really sure. I missed the point of statutory method versus if something was done wrong. I didn't before I joined, but I still cautioned last weekend, and I know that's why Degnan was probably so happy to say, yeah, let's vote the assessment, because I still go back to what Catherine always told us is once we vote an assessment, I don't know if we can go up on it. So I guess what's the quick summary? So if someone used the wrong formula to calculate the assessment?
Glenn, there was an equalized value utilized in figuring out what the statute, that we technically didn't use a statutory method.
No, I just checked my notes. The equalized value was done on capital only.
Okay.
But
Glenn, you could probably answer this one because you've been there the longest and you were there during the a lot of the trials and tribulations. What was the formula that was used on above minimum contribution? It was the percentages of each budget, correct?
Or is it enrollment? I checked the notes from
Jesus.
last year. It's enrollment.
Yeah, I think it was enrollment. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to go back and reverse calculate that. I know in the percentages, I know in the proposals that we had, Ed, from the RAC was that it was going to be split based on enrollment, but
Enrollment.
I think
Right, I
we
think
used to
that,
do
that's
it
what was
based
in the,
on,
that was what was in the proposal, but I think the school committee was voting based on percentages of budget. Or in a couple of years, that's how they had done it.
yeah, I mean, we could figure it out easy enough if we look back on however Catherine calculated last year, as we know what the percentage of budgets were versus the enrollment. But
So Paul, what is the percentage of enrollment currently? You know?
I have to pull it up. It's on the back sheet of that, actually. It's on page 2.
So Dr. Azar, I'm gonna throw the floor to you if you want to respond at all to Scott's comments, because I've shared this, that in the past, until I, from this process, have been kind of shielded out. Once you started having monthly meetings with Mallory, the finance committee, unlike the Rehoboth side, has had no active role, nor, other than a couple of conversations that I had reaching out to Mr. Kitchen and him calling me back, we did not have a role in having discussion on this, or were we approached on it. So I'll give you the floor to respond, and if you'd like.
Yeah, certainly, I appreciate that, Ed. Thank you. First and foremost, I just want to make sure people is clear on this as possible. Last year's debacle was created by the fact that the Rehoboth Finance Committee absolutely refused to meet with us. So I wanted to make sure this year that didn't happen, and it didn't happen. So I did reach out, Ed, if you look back on your emails, I did reach out to you, and you said you were not ready to meet yet. And there were emails that, text also indicating that, and I think it was because the numbers, it would have been early on. And the reason why I probably didn't pursue that is because we do have a good relationship. We have an excellent relationship. And the reason why I continue to expound, sort of say, about the administration and Rehoboth is because of the barriers that they've put up over the years, year after year after year, to all of us, to me particularly, to the chairperson, Kathy Cooper. So I wanted to make sure that we were in a position to get the numbers from them early on, because Ed, we've had conversations before that they don't always present the numbers up front, and we have to wait and wait and wait. So to Scott's message there, I mean, I'm not going to push back on anybody. I'm not going to say, no, you're wrong, because you know something, the totality of the situation that we find ourselves, particularly on the Rehoboth side, I feel as though I do have a good relationship with Mallory. I do have a good relationship with Ed. And sometimes that gets in the way of me saying to myself, and I'm available. It's not like I'm hiding from anybody. You know, I don't do that, and I never have, to keep those lines of communication open. And as far as the method that was utilized, Paul was very clear with me that we were following the same procedure that we did last year. So nothing, and Tom mentioned it as well, and I'm glad Rachel mentioned it as well, that we were probably all under the assumption that nothing's changed with the statutory method. So there was nothing nefarious there. But all I can do is basically apologize. We'll make it right. And, you know, I'll continue to try to do my best to represent both towns. But I am somewhat handcuffed by the fact that, and let's not forget, Dr. Azar has a, you know, Let's Fire Dr. Azar YouTube channel coming out of Rehoboth. So, you know, they're not as happy as folks think, and they're on the verge of canceling their town meeting. You know, so it's not all hunky-dory on the Rehoboth side. Please don't think that that's the case at all. And don't get any impression that I live in Rehoboth and I'm one-sided to Rehoboth. Don't ever get that impression at all. My whole existence is to create opportunities for our kids so they can have a fantastic education. And you know, it's been an adventure for all of us. So as far as finger pointing, all that kind of stuff, we don't need that right now under the circumstances. My administrative team that's on this call right now, We'll do whatever we need to do to move forward and do the right thing for everybody, particularly the kids. So Ed, I appreciate the opportunity to say that. And to Scott Dingus, I apologize for the agitation, but we have to figure out a solution, and we will, just like we've done for 6 years. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dr. Azar. So I'm going to ask if we can just take a break on the DR one for 1 second, because I do have some things I want to add, because Derek Costa from Bristol Aggie is here, and he has a commissioners meeting that he has to go to. So I want to give him the opportunity, because he did come last week too. And we were supposed to start his at 6:30 because he has a commissioners meeting. So can we just take a quick and ask the school committee, the DR school committee, to be patient with us on that? Give us just a minute to go through the Bristol Aggie one. So
Ed,
Derek
that's
can make it
fine.
to this meeting.
No problem, Ed.
All right, thanks, Derek. Thanks for hanging on, Derek.
No, not a problem. I mean, it seemed like the conversation needed to extend, so I don't want to take too much of your time. Our Board of Trustees meeting does start in a bit, but I just wanted to let the town know, and thank you very much for the invitation. I just wanted to present to the town, as we had sent notification letter in April, that the total number of students this year coming into Dayton will be 11 students for FY 21's assessment, school year 2021. Our per student rate is $24.17, so $2,417. And the total balance that is being assessed is $26,587. So if you remember, last year's number was 15 students. This year's number is 11, and the balance will be $26,587 for our assessment.
Okay. Yeah, just so you know, we always do budget 1 or 2 extra students just in case that does change. So, and it's such a minimal amount. So
it is. Thank you for giving me that time to speak about it.
yeah. So it looks like our number is it because other towns' numbers are up in students, or is it just less students we see leaving and going on that side?
Yeah, I start to see that. I trended it over the last few years, because you had the question came up last year on the number being down. So FY 18 was 23, FY 19 was 23, and then when we spoke last year, when I was present, it was 15 students, and now we're at 11. I think we're obviously actively enrolling and being close to the community that we have. Being right here with you all, we'd like to see that increase be more as we look to the campus being completely under renovation and construction. So students are actively enrolling, and we hope to find out exactly why they may not be selecting Bristol Aggie, particularly from the town of Dayton being so close. But at this point in time, our number is 11, 4 less than last year.
So 11's good if you're going to start charging capital on the project, but it's not good because I like to see Dayton students have the alternative of something different. So, but from a capital standpoint, in a couple of years, we'll take the 11.
Yes, sir.
So does anyone have any questions on the Bristol Aggie budget for the assessment?
Yeah, Ed, if I might.
Yeah, sure, Chris.
So to Ed, through you to Derek. Derek, does the $24.17 per pupil cost include a transportation component?
For us, it does. Yep. 24.17 is the full number. Yep.
That's the full number. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I just want to also make others aware, just in full transparency, the Board of Trustees did request a vote of an increase from tuition from last year to this year of $100 for our in-county. That needs to be ratified with the Board of Advisory, the advisory board, which does not happen until August. But I just want to make sure that's completely in full disclosure that it did go up by $100 per pupil.
And that's included in that number you gave us?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
It's included in that total number. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions to Bristol Aggie? Thanks, Derek. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Yep,
Be well, everybody.
Be well. All right. So I just want to address I think I feel like a broken record over the last couple of years. And I know you sent the emails and I said I wasn't ready. I'm sure it wasn't ready for this meeting, but in the past, there have been plenty of meetings that I sat in the superintendent's office early in January, February, or March, discussing where we were at, what we were looking at, what the expectation was. And for some reason, and Scott's right, those discussions happen when before they wouldn't happen, because Rehoboth wouldn't even meet to have those discussions, and Dayton would always have those discussions. That now that Rehoboth will have those discussions, the expectation is, well, we'll figure it out with Dayton later on. And I haven't had those discussions, and I don't need an apology. I just want the facts. I want the correct facts, and as Paul knows and Rachel knows, I've been asking the question when once the assessment started rolling out and what we heard the numbers were, that it didn't make sense to me. And we have a lot of knowledge on this finance committee with a lot of years of doing this, that when something doesn't look right, there's a reason for it, and it's going to get questioned. And I hope the expectation is that, yeah, you will expect the question, that this is not an easy rollover and Dayton's going to make it happen year. There's a lot of factors that we have this year. So understand that, yeah, we have had the ability to sit back and go, Rehoboth's never going to approve it. Our number's going to come down now anyway. I don't believe that's going to happen. But we're going to roll with the number that we have in front of us, and just know that we're going to tell you what we can't afford this year. And it's going to be a hard line. You know, in the past, we've been able to negotiate, and I hope you take into account what I said tonight about the number that I feel comfortable with, and that we've had some preliminary discussions on, that's the number we feel comfortable with as utilizing, and take that into your discussion of where you come back to a number with us that used to happen early on, where, you know, or when we got closer to this point before votes were actually taken, we would have a discussion, and at the end of the day, we'd say, all right, we're about $100,000 apart. How do we figure this out amongst us? And for some reason, that discussion has not taken place for the last few years. So Tom, did you want to say something? Or Glenn?
Yeah, the only comment I have is, I mean, realistically.
Glenn, I can't hear you.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear me yet or no?
You're really soft.
Yeah, it's very hard to hear you, Glenn.
Yeah, hold on. Can you hear me better now or no?
Get a real microphone. Upgrade your computer, you tech whiz. That's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's better.
So the only thing to say out there to be realistic is, I think that, wait, hold on. Zoom.
All right. I know.
All right, wait, hold on. Can you hear me now, Ed?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, damn
Nancy,
Zoom.
you're next.
Zoom. But anyways, what I was going to say is, I think to be realistic here, and I think like Dr. Asa mentioned, Rehoboth is probably not going to have their town meeting, and they'll probably do everything they can to not vote the budget just so we're in turmoil. So I think we got to figure out we'll be on a 1/12 budget anyways. And if we feel the statutory method was wrong, or however it was applied, we should make sure we have that sorted out, because when the 1/12 budget is calculated, they use the statutory method, whatever we tell them. So I'm under every impression that the state's just going to give us a 1/12 budget of last year, which is basically what we approved, because we're only 0.4% increase.
Yeah, so Glenn, I agree. Before we do anything, we need to sort out that statutory method again. And then we can have a better discussion. Oh, Nancy, before we went to Bristol Aggie, I'm sorry, you had wanted to add something.
Okay, this isn't about the budget discussion. Early on, Paul talked about a wastewater problem at the elementary school. How can we have a wastewater problem when we have public sewage over there?
You had a lot of backup. That's what it was.
From the public sewage system?
No, in the pipes in the building. You have
Wait a
clogs.
minute. Don't the pipes go into the public system?
You're getting blockage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Oh.
getting blockage.
So the public system is working, but getting it from the source in the school to the
tank, to the
system?
transfer tank. Yep. Yeah.
So, all right, so it's not a sewer department problem, it's a school
No.
department problem.
Yes.
Okay,
You're getting clogged pipes, which is backing up.
okay. Thank you, Ed.
All right, no
I just
problem.
wanted to put it general, soft. I wanted to soft. You're backing up a lot of shit.
God, Peter, did you want to?
It's recorded. You can't say things like that. Don't say it. You'll be fined by the FCC.
It's a biological project.
God, Peter, did you want to add something?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Ed, Ed, if I can, if you take a look, I mean, I'll look at the enrollments in the back, but I did based on enrollment. I'll check the percentages on those enrollment numbers, but
Yeah.
I'll just double check those. But the above was based on those enrollment numbers, and it was October 1 of 19. So
And what is that percentage?
it's on the sheet that Mallory has. I'll just double check the numbers.
Okay.
All right. So it's not anything that was, so
Is this what you're referring to, Paul?
yeah, that's the October, as of October 1 of 19, this is what I followed with the numbers to get the percentages. So
All right. So if that's the total number, so
I'll just double check them, but it is apparent that it's there, but it's just
yeah, but
check the percentages and we'll break them out.
if you take those numbers, Paul, and you do the calculation of the $2.95 million, it's not.
All right.
It doesn't come out to that number.
All right. Well, that's what I followed.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all right. And
All right.
we'll
So
go
if we
from
can
there.
take a look at that.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions before we move on to our next one?
Yeah, I had one additional question.
Sure.
You mentioned that you're trying to pull forward or get into this year the hardware purchase instead of deferring to next year and next year's budget. And you're going to fund that out of the transportation budget. How can you fund that out of the transportation budget, which is billed at actual, instead of the method that's defined in the?
Because they'll be done per building. Whatever we're doing on our building, site-based, you can transfer it within the lines for the building. So you have a certain set number inside your 3,300 line for student transportation. You're going to realize a savings this year in regular ed transportation. What I would do is I would ask for a transfer of funds from the Commonwealth, because they were supervising us, to go from 33 to, I want to say it's a 2,000. It's an instructional hardware line. And then each building is about, it's just shy, it's anywhere between $26,000 and $30,000 each. But you'll realize that inside your transportation line, because currently you're spending, previously you were spending, the contract was about $40,000 per week for the whole budget. So you'll have the savings inside you if it's allowed. So you can transfer within the lines. It's just that because you're not going to get reimbursed on your expenditures.
Right. So isn't this a capital expense versus a
No. No. Technology? No. No, it's a hardware expense. I mean, you can treat it as if you want to roll it out. If you're gonna, there's no infrastructure to it, so it's not a fixture. It's an asset. But $30,000 is not a capital project, I would say. Anything over 50 or 100,000, I would say, yeah.
And then how?
You currently budget 25,000 inside your technology line almost now.
What are you doing at the high school? How is that being broken up?
Excuse me?
Are you doing any hardware at the high school, or is this just for the lower ed?
No, it's for all 5 cost centers. So the high school would be from the high school transportation line also.
But that's billed at actuals instead of based on the per students, which the capital expense of the high school is split on this per student ratio.
If I had to, then I'd have to look for somewhere else to do it out of. Transfer the line over.
Are you all set?
I can transfer with the approval of the Commonwealth between any of the lines of that cost center.
Right, but if it's split, if it's taken out of the transportation, we'd be funding it over our percentage of student population because we'd be funding it at that contribution.
So at the high school, we didn't fill the psychologist position. That's 85,000. They need 30,000. I could take it out of that line.
Mr.
It's
Chairman,
semantics.
I have a question if no other committee members have any.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. I actually have two questions. I apologize. My first is, does your budget anticipate any reduction to local aid chapter 70? Is it do you have a automatic deduction that
The
you're
governor's recommendation right now, it's a 13 million that's there. The only thing I can think of that's going to be cut from there is probably the Student Opportunities Act, which is 85,000. And that might be made up based on the increase from the Title I that they're rolling out with the CARES Act.
okay? I'm operating, just in case you care, or if for parity's sake, I'm operating on expecting like a 10% reduction. I don't think it will be that much for Dayton, but just to be safe, I'd rather not have the shortfall. So we're going off of a 10% reduction.
Yeah, that would roughly be about a 7.5 because it's 85,000, 84,000 on 13 million that they're going to fund us. So it'd be like a 7%, 7.5%.
My second question, early on before COVID-19 was a thing, we had talked about capital expenditures, including the fields and upgrading some of your fields. You had briefly touched upon capital, you meaning the whole school committee. Are those plans on hold now due to what we're currently facing? Redoing the fields and the track.
I can't imagine using any of our E&D because that would have to be for 22 for the sum. If you were doing the track, you're looking at about $350,000. If you end up rolling out some of your E&D and putting it aside, I think you're going to need it in 22.
So you're holding those plans.
I'm holding them. I would.
Okay.
I would. That's my opinion. I just don't think
Paul,
you're gonna get it.
Paul and Mallory, that's a further discussion we'd have to have with our school committee, because that was a conversation that we had, obviously before COVID-19, that we had met with the Track Booster Club as well to try to figure out what we could do to try to move forward on the track. But now that we're in this pandemic and the understanding of what the impact of the revenues will have, that will be a discussion that we're going to have to continue on with the school committee. And typically our recommendation would be, what's in the best interest, obviously, for our district and our two towns.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mallory. Anyone else have anything to add before we move on to the next budget? So Dr. Azar, I'll give you a second to close if you'd like, and then we're going to move on to our next budget meeting.
Sure, Ed, thank you once again. I just want to thank the Finance Committee this evening, those individuals that are listening as well. We will obviously at our next school committee have a discussion about the statutory method and what was different from last year, because I was under the impression that nothing changed. But we'll take care of that and we'll move forward, and we will be in touch, and I hope everyone's safe and well. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azar.
Thank you.
I'll review it and I'll reach out to you sometime tomorrow.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Paul.
Night. Have a nice night. I gotta go to the Aggie meeting now.
Thanks, Dr. Azar.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
The next is conservation. Anyone?
Hey,
They were just in here.
Did I miss BP?
Oh, sorry. That's my bad. BP told us they couldn't make it tonight. They will be first on the agenda Thursday night.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Nance. Oh, by the way, Nance, I filed that whatever number 268A today.
Good job, Ed.
You don't have to send me any more emails.
Okay.
So they were just on this call. I don't know what happened to them or where they, if they left. But their budget is level funded with one increase they submitted. They submitted it late. So actually, let me go to this Google Doc.
You know what budget number that is, Mallory?
171.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Mallory, about that?
Please do. Yep.
Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I have written down here from March 11th that this budget wasn't submitted by Conservation. So did they send a follow-up or an addendum or something?
They did. They had not submitted, on March 11th was actually their meeting that they had met and voted on their budget. And so there was like, I'm trying to get the actual number, it was like $100. It wasn't a big difference from what we had level funded.
Yep. I just want to know what line it is so I can just make it here.
So what they had submitted to us saw an increase of $100 in line 5580 other supplies. So we had voted on it being 400. They submitted it being 500.
Okay. So, Madam Administrator, their total request is $6,250?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
6,200 or 6,250?
6,250.
250. Did you get that, Brett?
He thumbs up you. Yep.
Okay, I saw that. Thanks. Any questions on conservation?
Yeah, just for my own edification, the departmental request right now indicates 400. Is it different than, is the document that we're calling the master budget different from the request that conservation submitted after their meeting in March?
No, they had sent us their budget request after the Board of Selectmen voted on it, and it was late, like very late. So the board had voted on something that was $100 less than what they ended up submitting. So the request on this Google Doc, I can't find Chris, there you are. The request on this Google Doc has been updated based upon the department's request.
Right.
The selectmen's recommendations did not consider that. They considered a level funded budget because the commission just wasn't on time.
So the selectmen voted on a budget that wasn't what the department request was.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Any other question, conservation? Planning board. I see Mr. Rhines' name there. Is he with us?
He should be, Mr. Rhines.
Are you on mute?
He's not muted.
He is on
He
my
is now.
Yeah.
Oh. Huh. It won't let me unmute him. There we go. Mr. Rhines?
Hello, Tim?
You must be watching the Bruins right now.
You want to go to the next one? I'll send him a text and tell him we're waiting for him.
Or if he just calls it, it might be better. I think he might be actually using Zoom, having trouble.
So next is Board of Health. And I don't see, Tom was here last week, but
510 is their budget.
yeah.
Are we early or? Oh, we're like 3 minutes
We're
early.
3 minutes early.
We're on time. Good work, Mr. Chairman.
Because we did a really good job of it last week. All right. What number did you say that was, Mallory?
Board of Health is it starts at 510.
510. Thank you. So on the, do you know, Mallory, you might be able to answer this one. On the office manager, are they reducing the hours? Is that what they're doing?
That is, oh, is that in 519?
Yes.
She's back down in this budget to 35 hours. They were able to accomplish quite a bit with her extra hours. I wish she was here to kind of explain that, but they put it in writing to the selectmen back in January, and it was quite a bit that they were able to accomplish and get caught up on.
Okay. Any idea why 5340 has such a significant jump? Is that we just reallocated from somewhere else on the community?
No, they are, they're planning on a lot of mailers and educational components. So one of their programs they received a grant for through Mass DEP is the Recycling IQ program, which basically helps the town educate the public on what it means to actually recycle without contaminants in their recyclables. Because basically you put, you know, pizza box is the best example. The grease in the pizza box renders the cardboard unusable. Well, there's lots of different things where if you don't clean out correctly your recyclable, it renders them unusable. And so their program is going to start having people actually check the trash, and you will get a sticker placed on your trash can that tries to educate versus fine. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about educating the populace about what it means to recycle, why it's a big deal, and if there's contaminants in there, the town gets charged in certain areas. So they're planning on extra mailing in that kind of regard.
Mr. Chairman, I just have another piece of information. By chance, I spoke to the office manager about something else the other day, and she let me know that they're also planning a mailer for the Code Red Reverse 911 to let people know how to sign up. Not everyone has a computer. So I think a lot of that money is for, as the town administrator stated, communications, whole town communications and outreach. And so I think that that's a lot of what that's for.
I am here.
Oh, Tim Ryan. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Rhines. Thank you. Did you call in?
Yes, I did. Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Tim.
Yes. Good evening. How is everyone?
Good, thank you. And yourself? Are you
I am
staying well?
Yes, I am. I hope everyone is as well as their families.
Thanks, you too. All right, so we'll jump back to planning board.
175, if you're looking.
Yep.
Oh, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, I am ready to go whenever you are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I got to get back up to it. That's a long way from 419.
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm not being seen.
Tim, how are you? What's the matter? Are you having a Zoom troubleshooting problem?
No, should be still here. Am I still here?
Yep,
Yeah, you're still here.
You're here.
Okay, great.
Yes, you
I don't know what
are.
happened to my video. Okay,
So,
that's all right. You don't want to see how I look anyway. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before you begin, this is department number 175.
yep.
And you'll see some increases. We're going to make the proper adjustments. 2.5% was for salaries across the board for the chair and every member, divided equally amongst members. It says it's listed at 2.5%, and it should be 2% across the board, including our office manager's salary, only because the clerical workers have not ratified their contract yet, so we'll have to make the proper reduction in time with that. So her salary should read at a 2% increase and not 2.5%.
So are you amending your budget requests?
We would have to, we're still waiting again, Mrs. Aaronstein, on the administrative contract to be signed. So we could always amend that and lower that if possible, if need to be. And that would only be for the office manager.
I understand that. I was just there, if you're asking us, well, me and Chris Laviolette, the town accountant, if we need to change your budget request. I was just confused about the 2% stipend versus the 2.5% stipend for the planning board members.
Okay, that should be, it should read, it says a 2.5% increase. That should be, it should be listed as a 2% increase, proposed increase from FY20 budget. So that should read 2% and not 2.5%. Those numbers were given only because of what the past clerical workers union had signed for past contracts.
So I will, Tim, just as a matter of FYI, as we've gone through these budgets,
Yes, sir.
with all of the unknown of COVID-19, that, and we are over the levy limit, that we are separating out discussions on stipends and specifically increases or new stipends will be a separate discussion. We have discussed with other boards that stipends remain flat based
Okay.
on the current economic situation of what we may be facing. So just know that I don't want anybody to be surprised and walking in and going, oh, geez, again, the finance committee's recommending taking our stipends and taking, no, the case is in the economic situation that we're in, we haven't had a discussion. I know there was some discussion that some people would like to reduce stipends even more after what we did last year, but that discussion hasn't taken place, but a discussion of no increases to stipends is currently on the table.
Okay, that's understood, Mr. Chairman. And due to the COVID situation, I'm sure that most cities and towns are going to be losing probably up to 1/4 of their budgets due to what's happened this year, because, you know, you're going to have less receipts are going to be taken in. So that's understandable. We could always make that increase, leave it level for this year and possibly look at that. And if money's changed in the fall, maybe we could make an increase in the fall at a special, but most likely we would probably go back to annual town meeting in next year.
That is my opinion, wishful thinking. You know, I don't want to be here at the end of this and have to go to every department and say, you need to reduce your budget by 8%. So we are being extremely conservative in the estimates and the revenues that we do in order to make sure that we don't have to do that. So.
Correct, because I know that was a major discussion last year about, as you say, increases for stipends and such, and they're trying to take care of it. The only reason, there are a few reasons why we've asked for an increase in stipends. That's because the workload has increased, I would say, at least twofold, because, you know, members are getting bombarded by emails. I know it's all part of the position, and paperwork, signing documents, that type of thing. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I guess we are at your pleasure at this time.
I just don't want to go into a situation like we did last year where we had some departments standing up at town meeting and making these, or the last couple of years where they don't agree with it. There is a rationale for what we do. So.
No, there certainly is.
Any question of the planning board budget?
Tim, just in the professional and technical, it looks like in the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't come close to the number. Anything this year that we think we're going to hit the 20?
I think there's a strong possibility we're going to hit that, only because we have a new peer engineering group, and we may have to adjust some of our receipts to come into us through applicants, and we're not exactly sure on that at this time. So that's, I know I see a 24.51% increase, but I think under PNC also, we are looking to go back again to purchase a copy machine that will take care of all of our plans, extended plans, that type of thing. We're going back and forth, other departments are running back and forth to different printers to have this done. I think it would be cost efficient and effective if we could purchase that machine. I'm looking at it right now. We voted to put an article on the warrant for $10,500 for the purchase and installation of a service coverage of a plan copyist /scanner for the planning department. So we're still looking to go forward with that. That's a vital piece of equipment that we need And also the building department could use that as well as the zoning board of appeals and possibly the assessors upstairs.
Yeah, that's in the special articles, right?
That's correct. Then you see that, Peter, in the special articles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I see that FY '20, we budgeted 20,000 for P&T, and right now we're at almost 5,000 with a $15,000 left. I just want to go back, Peter, and just look at years past. In 18, it was 12,2. We had actual expenditures of 11,000 in FY '20. Again, you see we're right now at a low amount, but that may increase due to, again, applicants coming in, that type of thing.
Okay.
Mr. Rhines?
Yes, Dr. Zagrafis.
I have two questions, actually. My first question is, as I understand the planning board, at least they used to, back when Mrs. Bakke was the office manager, used to have their own sort of counsel for the planning board, and I believe it was a different firm. They were fabulous. They helped us with a bunch of stuff at that time. When the planning board needs to consult them, I'm curious to know which line out of your budget does that come out of?
Directly out of P&T.
Okay. And then my
Directly out of P&T.
do you not?
Yes, Doc.
Does it? This budget, you know, we only have figures going back a few fiscal years, but do you not anticipate needing to use counsel in the future?
Yes, I would anticipate using counsel as often as we have in the past, and we may have to use them a little more now going forward because we have hired a new peer engineering consultant outfit, and so we may have to use those monies in order to take care of any legals we'd have to go with.
Okay. And then my next question is when a planning, so I've been to a couple planning conferences like the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, and they were really helpful when I first got elected. Do any planning board members attend conferences? Do they plan to attend conferences? And when they do, where does their travel come from? Is that also out of P&T?
That has not happened since I've been on in the last year. I'd have to ask our office manager, Mrs. Easterday, about that and how that's been done in the past. I personally have not attended any conferences, and I'm not sure of any members have recently.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Rhines. Mrs.
Nope.
Bakke and I went to one together. You might want to go back to maybe 2017. I just want to make sure you have what you need to, you know, you have a couple new board members to continue to develop and grow and get the information. A lot of good ideas happen at these different collaboratives. And so I was just curious. I think the town administrator might have input though.
You have input. I see you're reading my Zoom. So I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rhines, but I thought that some of the increases requested in the P&T line were to go over all the decisions and all of the bylaws at the planning board, their rules and operations that the planning board goes over, which is why the increase was granted last year, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I also wanted to remark that any meeting like that would come out of dues and meetings. They would be coded a certain way during payroll.
Correct.
I mean bill paying, not payroll, sorry.
Any other questions from the chairman of the finance committee and any members?
I'm good. Anybody else have any planning board questions? Good. Thanks, Tim. Much appreciated. Stay well, friend.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, right now we stand at 2% across the board, and I will stay on the line because I know I'm up next with Park and Rec.
Yep. Okay. Park and Rec is what number?
630.
Thank you.
630.
We're all over the board here. I have to tell you, I do like this Google Doc thing.
It is a little
Okay,
easier to
Herman.
flip through on paper, though, Mr. Chairman.
Received from an intern. Basically, this gives some umbrage to our conversation last meeting about how important our intern program is.
I think the finance committee is going to put in to have dual monitors on everybody's station.
I don't have the desk space for that.
So Tim, do you just want to go over what, because I see there are some increased requests on all three of the major lines in Park and Rec?
Correct. Now, we had asked for some increases because the contractors and vendors that we deal with, a lot of their costs have gone up, including shipping and manufacturing a lot of this equipment. So I would be amenable to, if you decided to just go with a 1% increase across the board on those items that we're just discussing now. Turn that off. I'd have to reconfigure those numbers, but
So what is the plan? Are these just the equipment repairs and maintenance? That's just maintenance stuff? That's not, is there proposed to buy anything new?
we're looking at some things right now, Mr. Chairman, and we're also looking at doing a possible playground in North Dayton. We're using CPC funds, so we were thinking also that if we had a shortfall, we could possibly tap some of that resource.
Okay.
I
Any
don't know if that
questions
answers
on
your
Parks and
question.
Rec?
If no
So,
finance,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Dr. Zagrafis.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna ask, so if you're gonna get less in the budget for the equipment and you're gonna use more CPC funds to fund the park, I agree, we should have a North Dayton Park. It's been a long time coming, and I appreciate the work that you've done on that. How does that affect the other projects that you might potentially fund from a CPC perspective? Is there enough to go around? Does this eat into another project the committee was thinking of funding?
Well, we've already gone through with CPC-wise, and we're looking at Lincoln Village, and those monies are taken out of the designated position for housing and also a small sum of monies from the undesignated reserve for the $136,000 project we're going to propose at town meeting.
Okay.
And also, we're just going with, we're going with that warrant article for our only project for the year. And our budget items, that's separate away from what would be used for the equipment possible in North Dayton. So I'm trying to wrap my head around your question so I can answer it correctly.
No, you answered it perfectly. I
I
apologize.
see
I forgot.
Madam Administrator's look on her face.
No,
So-
I
Happy.
Right.
I actually have a question for you, but now I have to ask you about a warrant article about that. So that's all.
Yeah, that's next week. Well, that's
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, so we're pretty much looking at, as I say, increases only because cost has gone up, and believe it or not, shipping has gone up, even though you're seeing a reduction in fuel prices. Now, I've been trying to contact some of our vendors right now, and due to COVID-19, of course, we're unable to purchase on the items. You know, we know that we are in a spending freeze right now across the board for everyone in town. So I'm hoping I'm answering Dr. Zagrafis' question, but yeah, we'd like to possibly, if we need to purchase, say, one or two small items, like maybe some swing seats, that type of thing for the apparatus, then we would go that route. But I'm looking at using all CPC funds to build a playground in North Dayton. That's our objective for next year for a town meeting.
No, that answered it perfectly.
Thank you.
Tim.
Okay.
How much money do
Madam
we have?
Administrator, you had a question?
How much money do we have in total CPC?
Oh, Mrs. Goy had asked me that question, right? Of course,
Well,
I don't
Chris
have those figures in front of me.
Maybe Chris knows. Is Chris still on?
Chris is here.
Everything in my memory is a number. So yeah, unfortunately, I haven't committed that one to memory yet.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Right now, I just want to go off the top of my head. I think we're looking at a little less than $200,000 in the undesignated reserve. We're looking at $100,000, a little more than that, for affordable housing. We have $75,000 set aside already for the historical side, and right now I think we're at less than $20,000 for open space, CPC-wise. Because we still have a project in flux with Pleasant Street with CPC in regards to a land taking down there. I'm sorry, a purchase. So
Okay.
that's what we're looking at there.
Okay, thank you.
So could I?
Oh, you're
I'm
welcome,
gonna-
Mrs. Gulart.
Since someone brought up CPC, I'm going to ask a question, and don't take this as Ed's
No.
advocating something, but Ed has heard, and he's just asking if anyone else has heard this from other communities, that there have been, as people get into their economic issues, that they have discussed in some communities to eliminating the CPC tax. And has any I just want to get feedback on that, because I have heard that around.
I've heard that, and I'm horrified that somebody would consider that, because it's such a small return. And when we have to dig ourselves out of our own economic recession, that's a great way to start a local project. So I am horrified at any community looking to get rid of CPC. It does a lot with a little, and it makes sure that the projects that usually have to compete with a police cruiser or a funding regular operations, that they do have funds set aside for those projects that are very worthy and very important for a community. So I would not be advocating
I
to
second that.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating that. I'm just
I know, sorry.
throwing it out there as a
Nope.
discussion topic, because we're going to have to fill some time to get to the timeframes that we have on the schedule here.
I would just like to say, Mr. Schwartz, that in regards to CPC, there's been some directives that have come down, not a directive, but some information has come down from the Department of Labor Standards that, of course, due to COVID-19, they're going to see a major reduction in monies that are coming in through receipts that are generated through the Registry of Deeds. So we're looking at that. So the numbers that we put together for CPC have risen a little bit in the 10, 10, and 10 categories, which are mandatory. Then we have a 5% administrative budget. That hasn't changed. That budget has not changed, a 5% administrative fee. But if we have to make the adjustments, say, at a special town meeting in the fall to make a reduction for monies going into those CPC 10, 10, and 10 categories, then we will do as such at that time.
Thanks, Tim. Anybody else have any other questions, either CPC or any of the budgets that Tim was here for?
Just a comment, Ed. CPC, according to the last information I saw, there's going to be a slight increase in funding, and it's like just over 11% is the match this time, based on
That's correct,
money.
Mrs. Gulart. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's estimated right now. They're estimating.
And I agree that that's one tax, as far as I'm concerned, that you really see straight out point to something direct benefit. Yeah, we get benefits from all the taxes we pay, but I think CPC has really been outstanding in this town.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to say this, Mrs. Gulart, thank you. I have a board that I work very well with. We get along well. We do get our business done. But in regards to what you just said, that's absolutely correct, because last year we had a major windfall of monies coming in because the receipts for Registry of Deeds had gone up, and plus the state legislature had voted to give an extra $20 million to the CPC fund and have that spread out through the community. So we had a major windfall last year that we're not going to see until, unfortunately, late August or September of this year from last year. And then we'll see those receipts again are going to come back in again. So you'll see, we should see a good sized bump this year CPC wise with receipts coming in.
Nice. Good work.
And Tim, also, that reminds me, when that special, that 20 million was announced, isn't that a 2-year deal? It's coming in late 2 years in a row?
I don't believe they voted on that, Mrs. Wood, only because I believe that if the state budget has a surplus of I forget the number. The state has a budget surplus of over, yes, I believe it was $10 million. Any monies above the 10 million, they try to give out to other entities within the state. But the first $10 million of the budget overflow, that directly goes into the life sciences. So I don't believe a lot of people know that. I see a little man in my computer screen. Hi, handsome.
Say hi, Kevin.
Oh, there's
Hi,
my
Kevin. How are you, How are you?
Well, Kevin, welcome to this week's meeting.
How's everyone doing?
Everyone is well. How are you?
Good.
Are you eating vegetables?
I'm eating vegetables.
You're eating your vegetables? What is your favorite vegetable? Can you tell me?
This broccoli.
Broccoli.
Oh, you are broccoli. Ah. Oh, I see
Cole.
somebody else in the background.
Hello,
Hi, Cole.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Brett.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Kevin, is Brett your favorite?
Good.
Who's your favorite?
Brett.
I hope.
Brett. Oh, I got Brett over mommy. Okay.
So I just have one.
We know who Cole's
who's the
favorite is,
redhead?
though, right? It's Ed, right, Cole?
Ed.
It's Ed. No.
Ah,
All right, let's bring
that's
this back. Let's
My
get back to
favorite one.
quarterback. So, thanks, Tim. Tim, appreciate your time. I hope you're going to come back for our discussion on the articles on CPC on Thursday.
This Thursday.
Yep.
And what time are you starting the meeting, Mr. Chairman?
We start at 6. Special article review begins at 7, according to our schedule.
Okay, I'll be here with bells on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Nice to see everyone. Take care. Be safe.
See you, Tim.
You too.
Bye, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. So, Mallory,
You're
do
welcome.
we know if
Thank you.
anyone from the zoning board is going to join us?
I don't believe so. Their budget was pretty straightforward. If you want, I can, they're 176. Sorry, I just have to get there.
Me too. It's a long way
Okay.
up. We got to do a better grouping next year.
You know, I think about that, but then everybody has so many different hats that you want to get them in the same night. Difficult. Okay, so this office manager position, you're going to see a major increase. Jonathan has a master's degree, and I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was January or February. It was February that the Board of Selectmen voted to recognize his education and therefore give him this $1,200 stipend. So that's why from previous years, the increase is a little wonky. He also joined us mid-year. He started at the end of January. And so you can't really trust this percentage increase for the data.
Okay.
But that's what that, by the contracts, the position's a grade 6. So it is funded as such, and you have the $200 in there for his stipend. We have a note from the Board of Selectmen side that the clerical union collective bargaining agreement has not settled, and that the Board of Selectmen voted to level fund the stipends, and the ZBA had provided a 2% increase for the member stipend. They've also looked to increase their professional technical line, and that was for anticipated legal expenses related to Strawberry Fields, which we all know we've been kind of battling quite a bit. Shameless plug, they're going to be the first group using Zoom for a public hearing that's happening tomorrow. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward and level funded budget.
And any questions?
Mallory, are they getting a new legal counsel under professional and technical or engineering? Not legal, engineering.
Engineering, no. The ZBA, no. No, they were looking into using a special consultant, but that did not pan out. And they're sticking with Marguerite for their legal counsel, and she'll carry them through with the ZBA. It looks like some people are trying to speak, but I can't hear them. Peter Roach?
Mallory, I just looked at the recommendations, that a couple of lines that you had recommended a lower amount. And
Sure. Oh.
You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
Just wanted to see
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Pete.
that you had on that versus versus the board of selectmen.
Yeah, so I don't, if you notice this, if somebody puts in a budget request and it's just a 2% increase on expenses, I generally don't follow that. Like, I look at past spending. I do not like overtime. I don't think it's fair, just to keep carrying over an overtime line. So some is necessary, but I think we'll be fine with $1,000, what's going on with the ZBA. So that's my first decrease. The other has to do with the professional and technical, and I think they can get it done with 10,000, and that's mostly based upon previous spending and where they are spent through this year, March of this year, and that includes all the work that has been done on Strawberry Fields. So I think 10,000 is fair, and that's what I put my recommendation at.
Okay, great.
Mallory, my question about the engineer, I thought Peter was retiring and they were getting somebody new.
That's the planning board, and we did a, we went out with an RFP, and we actually conducted interviews with the two final consultants through Zoom when this first started. And the planning board, very much a shout out to Carrie Easterday and Tim Rhines, who worked with me on that. And we selected Green International. We recommended to the planning board, and they voted Green International to serve as the peer review. But that would not take into account ZBA work. We had originally gone out asking if the other boards, sewer, ZBA, and planning, wanted to go out together, and there wasn't interest in that from those other boards. So we stuck with just the planning board.
So what I find confusing is Peter is the person I've been dealing with at the ZBA meetings when I talk about stormwater. Is he leaving and someone else is going to step in?
No, I think, Nancy, he's agreed to stay on for projects that he had already started. He's going to
Okay.
stay on through those.
Okay, all right, because I've only seen him at ZBA meetings, so I'm thinking, what's going on here? Okay, thank you.
He's still gonna answer your emails, Selectman Goulart.
So any other questions on ZBA? All right, Mallory, do you think that we will have anyone from the Industrial Development Commission?
We will not. The chairman of that board had resigned, and when I said, would you like me to submit a budget for you on your behalf, she said no. Selectman Zagrafis and I have discussed very briefly, but ways in which we can revitalize that committee. But we took a hard line, we meaning the Board of Selectmen took a hard line that if you did not provide a budget request, then it would be zero or level funded based upon your department. And that's what happened in two instances. This one, which is zero, and the Conservation Commission, where we voted on the level fund. So this committee was given some money. I think it was like 7,000. They didn't do anything with it. So then the board cut it.
No,
I think it was cut even more. And they just weren't able to mobilize. So this is something that Selectman Zagrafis and I want to work on and promote economic vitality with some other things we have coming around. So we think at this time, you know, we're going to scratch it and start from scratch a little bit.
Okay.
Can I add something to that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
So,
Oh my goodness, Jonathan Gray is here. I'm sorry, I didn't.
So just one thing about the DIC, and I think, Scott, you were originally on this back in the day, probably when it was a little more active than it is now. There's been a lot of change in the leadership there. When you look at the actual Mass General laws that give this commission its authority, it's mostly marketing. The town administrator and I are busy at work on the Town of Dayton Business Guide. I really think that will be a really important marketing tool. It will also be just important to get business to know how they can open up in Dayton. I guess what I'm trying to tell you, Mr. Chairman, is Cahal O'Brien used to be on the committee. He was very active. Vicky was pretty much very active on it, and now those two individuals have gone and departed from the commission. And I think that we would best be served to not fund the commission, and the town administrator and I can strategize on how we can approach marketing in the future and revitalize that commission. But right now, I just don't think that that money for the commission is really going to go to use.
Thanks, Brett. Mr. Gray, welcome.
Hello.
John.
Mallory. So your ears must have been burning because Mallory was saying such good things about you before you came on the call. Even though she probably forgot to let you in, that's why you were here after she said.
Oh, okay.
She was stealing your thunder, John.
So
first virtual
Hi guys.
hearing, yeah.
I did. I'm very proud of you guys. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, you can judge me tomorrow after that meeting.
Zach, is that you? Is that you,
Yes,
Zach?
it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, yes.
Hey, Zach.
Hi, Zach. How are you?
Chairman.
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So I think there were a couple of questions, right, that came up. They were answered, but you guys can confirm those answers. One was, can you guys confirm that Pete Williams is still doing, the only work he's doing is the projects that he started on, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, that was one of the questions. The other one was in regards to, I know you guys had recommended under professional and technical, an increase. Can you just explain that increase? Because I know the recommendation coming back from administration is to level fund it. Can you just discuss that for a second?
Zach, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so at that point when we set this budget for 12,000 instead of 10, we were at the point where we weren't sure if we were going to need to hire a 40B consultant.
Consultant, that's right, yeah.
Which would not be under the 53G account. So that would be sort of money out of the town's own pocket. So that's why we went with that additional funding. We weren't really sure at that point.
It was a buffer, yes.
Right. At this point now, I think we're now in the mode that we're not going to be moving forward with a 40B consultant.
So that was the gentleman who gave the presentation, I think, the night that I was at the meeting?
That is correct.
So what, because I thought he gives a pretty good case, but what was the rationale for not hiring that consultant? Or a 40B consultant? Because I think we found from the last one, which I will say I am currently in a butter to, that we found from the last one that we could have benefited from having someone with a different set of ears. That one of the reasons that the board got overturned was because no one would listen from some outside influence, that there were some issues that could have arisen, that the town ended up spending a lot of money to stop the project that can be addressed in a different way with this project versus what happened the last time.
Right. And so, Jonathan, just and you can stop me if I'm wrong, but from what Marguerite, part of her understanding was that she wasn't sure at this point, as this far into the process, was there anything new or different that he would be able to shed a light on that she didn't already know or that wasn't already brought up? And by no means was she saying, oh, I know more than him. I don't want you guys to think that was at all her intention. She just didn't think at this point what input he could have that would be anything additional to what we already know. Right, Jonathan, would you say that's pretty much what you said too?
Yeah, so I think the plan is really to use the 40B consultant if we absolutely need to. And so the sort of guidance for Marguerite, the ZBA's attorney, is that, if she feels like she needs an additional hand with, drafting, conditions or something for Strawberry Fields, then she can let us know. But at this point, I feel like this general consensus that we were a little too late in the process to really benefit a huge amount.
And I'm just going to throw this, my opinion, never too late in the process in a project that's going to be a substantial change to the dynamics of the town. Secondly, and this is where I kept, we went through the same thing the last time, and I don't want to turn this into a Strawberry Fields discussion. Marguerite.
No, I know.
Marguerite is the ZBA's legal counsel, not the ZBA 40B consultant. And And I think we get caught up, and that's what happened the last time. And I think it happens every time we have a 40B project come to town, is we rely on our legal counsel to be our true expert on as a consultant. And those two roles need to be separated. I'll go to a ZBA. I may zoom in on the ZBA meeting tomorrow night to express that, but I just think, and this isn't to the budget, and I really shouldn't have had this discussion at this point, but just, I throw that out as a food for thought.
You're just letting
So
them know don't come tomorrow.
So that being said, then the amount that we have in there, do you think that would be enough to support a 40B consultant?
That's not for me to make that determination. I don't know. I'm not involved in the project or the scope of the project or what's really necessary for it. But I'm making an argument for you to have that extra money, not against you to have that extra money.
Right.
So can I just provide a frame of reference here that the rate for the 40B consultant is approximately $200 per hour. So this would be approximately 10 hours of their time. So.
Well, that's assuming you wouldn't use any of your current professional and technical tools.
Right.
So I just throw it out there. That's separate. Any other questions on? I think those were the two questions we had. Mallory eloquently explained that your vast knowledge and education that deserves much more than what we're paying you to be here, Jonathan, in my opinion.
Yes. Yep.
I appreciate it.
So, any other questions for the ZBA?
Hey, Ed, just a comment on the $2,000 that was just discussed. Personal opinion, I'd leave it in there. I realize it's only 10 hours, but having lived through the misery of that last episode and having voted to take on the DEP when it went the wrong way, and remembering the kind of money we spent to fight that, but we did win it. If this consultant, if the 2,000 is getting close to being used up, we got a special in the fall that they could always ask for more. But for now, I would leave it in there.
Right. Now that was one thing too. Like I know that Fisher, he, I mean, I'm not really putting words in his mouth, refused to pay for that, even though we said that it would fall under the 53G account. He said, no, we would not put money towards that. So that's also why we had to put that in the budget too, expecting that, that might not come out of his expense.
What does legal counsel tell you on that?
So,
go ahead, Mallory.
So this is a little beyond the scope of the budget, but I spoke with Adam Costa, who's actually an attorney. So he's not your traditional 40B consultant, therefore he has a higher price tag, of course. And he's actually an attorney that just has an incredible amount of experience. For those of us who were at that meeting, he obviously proved his salt, right? He was great. But he is a legal counsel. So him signing on as a 40B consultant wouldn't really be professionally in place because we had legal counsel in Marguerite. So the ZBA said, all right, we'll stick with our legal counsel with Marguerite, and Adam had very generously offered a backup of sorts. And like, if we get into a jam, we could, consult him if Marguerite felt that was necessary. But for professional courtesy, we can't have two lawyers do this. So when we as a town had said, yes, Mr. Hashem, we're looking at having a 40B consultant, his response was, well, you're a little late on that. And he's right within the confines of the law. So he's actually right. So while I think the points are valid that, yeah, we should probably get one and, pay for it's a small investment for a bigger return, but that would be up to the ZBA to go forward with. And unfortunately, Attorney Costa just wouldn't be our guy for that.
Not only that, back on that, right? When you said Attorney Costa, I'm like, I know that gentleman. I know that name. He is part of Mead, Tallerman, and Costa, who I believe is legal counsel for the planning board. So I think it's best for that reason alone.
Separate, yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you. Any other questions of the ZBA budget?
So can we leave the 2,000 in there initially? It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the person you're naming.
Yeah, yes, yes.
It's a resource, Ed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think you'll need a lot of resources on this project, so.
Been there, done that.
Yep, so.
Yep.
But thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the conclusion of our budgets for tonight. Interesting night. I will stay in touch with the schools to see what kind of information we get back. We start with BP on Thursday night, and we'll get through the last, I think, 5 budgets we have before we start talking special articles, and then just a general budget review. Depending on what time it is when we finish that up, we can start some recommendations, and I would say we do them similar to the same as we did in the past. Mallory, if you can reach out to the, and Chris, to the assessor to see if maybe we can get some better information. I know she is meeting with us on, or the Board of Assessors is scheduled to meet with us on Thursday. Please make them aware that we will be asking that question, that we want, and some substantiated facts to what their recommendation is, because based on the last 3-year history and that new growth, it's not that the housing market has come to a halt. There's low inventory. People are still buying houses. So our new growth will be, they're still building houses. So our new growth will be somewhat bigger. So any questions before we wrap up for the night?
Do we have Board of Health on Thursday?
No, we had them tonight. No one came.
Oh, okay.
But Mallory, you can, if you want to add an addendum to Thursday with the Board of Health, if Tom, reach out to Tom and say, I don't know, maybe something came up and he couldn't make it tonight. I'd rather have a discussion with Tom rather than it coming to the floor of town meeting and Tom brings something up.
I agree.
So give him one more opportunity to meet with us.
Okay.
Okay, so Mallory, who are we looking at besides Bristol Plymouth? Who we got on for Thursday?
Oh,
Library, town clerk, treasurer collector, Board of Assessors, and then start the discussion on the articles. Even though you guys haven't made your final recommendation of what will be on the warrant, we'll have a preliminary discussion of what's out there for articles, so we can at least maybe come to some agreement on what we can afford to put on there, so we can at least have a discussion, so we know what you guys' priority is, and we'll we can take it from there. Ken, do you have anything you want to throw out tonight?
No, I'm all set.
All right, thank you. Brett?
I'm good. Thank you.
Around the room, CJ?
Oh, all set.
Scott, all set?
That is awesome. Look at Ken's cat joining the party.
Kevin?
Kevin and Cole are in bed. They need to be in bed.
Set. Chris, you have anything, Laviolette? You all set?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Ed.
All right, thanks. Have a great night, guys.
Hey.
Night, everybody.
Night.
Oh, adjourn. We need to
Oh,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
There we go.
Don't move.
Second, there is no discussion. All those in favor?
There we go.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Mallory, get a good video of me at the start of that video.
I don't do it. It's cable, and I am victim all the time. Have you
I'll
seen
make sure we pick a better